For me personally, it was a very interesting experience because I came from the university. I was teaching international law and constitutional law, in the abstract as it were. But be thrown in the real world at the age of 30 as ambassador to the UN to succeed Ambassador Tomiko was a real eye-opener because I was exposed to the harsh realities of real politics and made to understand very quickly that ideals aside, national interests drive every country's foreign policy. Every country pursues its national interest. But how do you pursue your national interest at the same time make maximum friends and be useful and be seen to be useful and relevant to other countries in the region? That is the challenge. And I think the various episodes, what we have done in the UN, what we have done in ASEAN, are some examples of how we as a small country can play a role. But we have to do it in a way that does not seem to be pushy, does not seem to be arrogant, and get other countries to be stakeholders and partners in the various ideas that we come out with. And it's not just coming out with ideas. Anyone can come out with ideas, but you have to come out with ideas, get the cooperation, harness the support of other countries. I gave some examples in the book, such as the ASEAN Regional Forum or the Asia-Europe meeting or the Asia-Middle East dialogue process. These are ideas, but for them to take off, not only will our MFA officers and ministers have to work very hard to persuade the others, but we have to have a buy-in from the countries whose support is essential. For example, we have to get ASEAN countries to agree before the thing can take off. So it requires persuasion, credibility of the idea, and we have to work hard. If we come out with the idea, we must be working most hard amongst everybody else to shepherd the idea from conceptualization to realization of the idea. And that's where I have great admiration for our MFA as well as officers from the other ministries. Each episode, of course, has a special place in my memory. The one episode where clearly I would consider to be most memorable is the Pedra Branca event. Although I don't elaborate on it except in the chapter on peaceful settlement of disputes, because Tomiko and I have written a separate book on that. Why is that has a special place in my memory is because I was involved in it even when I was in the university, before I got into the foreign ministry. I was involved in the Law of the Sea delegation. And one day when Tomiko and I were in Geneva, permanent secretary from MFA sent a note. Those days there was no fax or email, by telex, saying that Malaysia is about to publish its map, 1979, claiming Horsburgh, Pedra Branca to be within their newly claimed territorial waters. So we'll have to lodge a protest, but can you locate some critical documents? So I had to fly from Geneva to London to the India Office records to locate these documents. So that's how my involvement began in the late 70s, right up to 2008, when the International Court gave its judgment, span of what, 30 years. So that has special place in my memory, but also it's special because Malaysia and Singapore signaled to the region and to the world that this was a civilized, sensible way of resolving a dispute, instead of the alternative of having a constant, being a constant irritant in bilateral relations. We decided to put this aside, settle it with the International Court of Justice, and we were able to proceed with the rest of our bilateral relationship. So Pedra Branca is a special story for me. As for the other episodes which are challenging, I think the bilateral relations are particularly challenging because you want to have as good and solid bilateral relations with your neighboring countries. You want to have a cooperative relationship, but it's inevitable that there will be hiccups and problems that arise from time to time, and I had my fair share of it. But how to deal with this in a way that, while you advance your national interest, safeguard your national interest, you ensure that the overall tenor of the relationship is not derailed. I think that is a lesson that I'm trying to put across in the chapters on the bilateral relations. You must have the overall relationship in mind, keep it going, manage it while you have the occasional hiccups. And in bilateral relationships, the other lesson is the personal relationship between leaders, between foreign ministers, is very important. And I think it's really very satisfying that our leaders, both with Malaysia and with Indonesia, have a good personal and working relationship. And I myself enjoyed a very good personal working relationship with the foreign ministers. And that is helpful. Right? For example, in the difficult episode we had with the Philippines over the floor contemplation event, Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong and President Fidel Ramos had a good working relationship, and they were on the phone from time to time. The then Foreign Minister Bobby Romulo and I were in contact, sometimes almost on a daily basis, through telephone and fax. So that on the one hand there was a lot of sound and fury in the media, but quietly behind the scenes we were able to phone each other and say, look, as every development twist and turn took place, say, look, let's manage this. And both at foreign minister level and at the leaders level, we were clear that we didn't want to derail the diplomatic relations. So that can be done only if you have struck up a good, warm, working relationship.